My name is Anthony Villanueva. Today is September 22nd. I am interviewing Sylvia Scoggin. This is a follow-up interview. We had a previous interview on file. Um, we are going to interview for the Latino Oral History Project, Voices of a Pandemic at the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies at Northern Illinois University. This project is in partnership with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas. Because this is being recorded, I have to ask you several questions to which you will answer I agree or no, I do not agree. The Center for Latino and Latin American Studies wishes to archive your interview along with other photographs or other documentation at the Northern Illinois University Libraries, Northern Illinois, New Jersey. No, Illinois. I took myself back to where I went to school. Getting right to it, do you agree to give the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies consent to archive your interview and your materials at Northern Illinois University Libraries?
I agree.
Do you grant Northern Illinois Universities the rights, title, and interest to and copyright over the interview and any material you provide?
I agree.
Do you agree to allow Northern Illinois University Libraries to post this interview on the internet where it may be viewed by people around the world?
I agree.
Do you grant the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies consent to share your interview and other materials with Voices Oral History Centers at the University of Texas at Austin for inclusion in the Voices of Pandemic Oral History Mini Project, which will include posting the interview on the internet?
Yes, I give consent.
Do you wish for us to share the rest of your interview in your public file available to researchers at the Benson and NIU libraries?
Yes, I give consent.
And lastly, on occasion, the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies and Voices receive requests from journalists who wish to contact our interview subjects. We will only deal with legitimate news outlets. Do you give consent for us to share your phone number and your email with journalists?
Yes, I give consent.
Okay, thank you. Concluding that preamble, you contacted me and you stated that you wanted, you had some other thoughts that you wanted to include in your interview. Can you share those with me?
Yes, I wanted to bring up the point that my parents are bilingual. So they're very fluent in Spanish and English. They've been here a long time. So I was thinking about this, like, because most of my family is not. So I think that my father is still alive today because he is bilingual. I think because he understood and could advocate for himself and his health care, and my mother calling and never giving up, them not dismissing her because she spoke English and understood. I feel like he had a better chance than most people in the community, Latinx community.
So your point is that because of the ability to better communicate in, I'll call it the Anglo world, they had a better chance at better healthcare.
Yeah.
And so what does that say for the converse of that premise, that those that are only speak Spanish are at a disadvantage?
I feel like, yes, if they can't understand their doctors. I always feel like like my son goes to the doctor in the city, like the nurses are always the ones that have to translate or be interpreters. Well, if there's not enough nurses, like with COVID, there probably isn't, to translate. I feel like it's always lost in translation. Like if you cannot communicate with your doctor or your nurse or tell them how you're feeling or understand the treatment or anything like that, I feel like he had a better chance that he could say, no, I don't want that. Or why aren't you doing that? Or I feel bad. Or, like I felt like he had to fight for it. And I see a lot of people that don't speak English. Like I get like accused of not like that's probably one of the first questions people ask me is, do you speak English? You know, like so to be dismissed because you don't understand what I'm saying is what I feel like happens all the time. You know, like even people that speak Spanish, they hear even they do it. You know, like they don't understand. They're just like okay, and they nod. You know, or they agree. So I felt like my and understanding the news, my parents understanding the president, you know, the doctors, the scientists on TV, you know, and understanding the what was false and what was you know, like I felt like had a better understanding about that too, knowing English.
Just out of curiosity, when did this come into mind? When did you realize this?
I was doing my one of my projects for race and ethnicity class, and it was about COVID and the effects in the Latinx community. And I read an article about a nurse in San Antonio, Texas, who said that they've become the interpreters. They have become the voices for the people that cannot understand English, or you know, the doctors, and so they're like doing multi jobs, you know, being the doctor and the nurse and the interpreter and the, you know, trying to explain everything. And she had mentioned that, you know, not every nurse is bilingual. So like she's being taken off floors and being sent everywhere to be an interpreter. Well, if she's not there one day, you know, like then who interprets? And she's brought up the fact that the English the stuff on the news. Like most of the people don't watch English TV; they watch Spanish. You know, so like they're not getting the same information.
That's a very good point. I'm really glad that you came back and got me to follow up on this aspect of your thoughts. And
Yeah, yeah, it just like
do
came to
you
mind.
do you
My
know of do
couldn't
you know of anyone? Do you know of anyone that is only speaks Spanish and has been impacted by this lack of awareness?
just from like friends of friends or friends of family. And you hear stories, you know, you hear all these stories of, and I feel bad. What hits me the most is I'm hearing stories, but like I'm not hearing my white friends tell me their stories. You know, like, oh yeah, my cousin had 3 people die in his building, you know, or like, you know, or I lost my grandfather and 2 cousins, you know, like people like I've known people that lost like half their family members, you know, like it's there are people that lost their spouses and they're left with children. You know, it's I'm not hearing that on the other side.
I see. That's another for me. Getting our subjects in that same category, bilingual and not comparing outcomes.
I've also heard stories of like people that take it, you know, back then when you're not allowed to stay with your family members, you just drop them off and hope somebody takes care of them. Like they have dropped off family members, haven't heard weeks, you know, in the hospital, and then find out they're deceased. Like they're not even called to say goodbye or told until after the fact. Like they have to hunt down what happened to their family member. I've heard stories like that too. That's crazy. You know, like,
That happened to my mother-in-law.
oh my God.
She was transferred from a nursing home in Elgin to a COVID hospital in Chicago, and it took us 3 weeks to find her. Nobody knew where she was.
That's ridiculous. See, they just kind of, oh, well, you know, they probably assumed. I don't want to say, but maybe it's.
She ultimately passed away. She never came out of the hospital. Anyway, but this is your interview, not mine.
Yeah, it's just hard. It's again, you're from the Latinx community. I'm not hearing it on the other side. I'm hearing on like I live in both worlds, like because my husband is Anglo, my mother-in-law lives with us, and she has a lot of friends that are testing positive, but they're asymptomatic. They're the ones spreading it, like
Yeah.
she tested positive again. And we had
I
another
remember in our first interview, you told me that she had tested positive.
again with no symptoms. Effect, didn't tell us again. My husband ended up with pneumonia. So like ended up in the hospital and yeah. So it's just frustrating, like but her friends aren't dying. Like
Right. Is there anything else you want to share with me?
I think that's it. And yeah. So
I
yeah.
mean, it was short, but it was very impactful, very eye-opening.